Okay, I'm going to spend today's time talk about two things. Oh, I haven't turned on. Can you hear me? All right. So I'm going to talk about two things. First, I'm going to talk about homework assignment number 6, which is for JDOM. And then I talk about homework assignment number 7 to at least give you some idea how it will work. So let's actually come to the program. Let me actually make it bigger. Okay, so this is the program that's handling the. Let me actually first take a look at the HW5 produce. So you will see what's going on here. So this program is called HW5 produce.cpp. So HW5 produce is essentially reading a JSON file. And after reading the JSON file, we try to push into the C++ world to create the C++ object. That's essentially the opposite direction of dump-J, which you're working on homework assignment number 5. So let's actually take a look at the code very quickly. Then I will show you a demo. So essentially, I create. Of course, I open the file. fopen, and then what I did is that I read the whole thing. I open the file, I realize how big the file is. So I basically grab the whole, by the way, this piece of code will be given to you. Your job is finish JDOM, but you actually got to see the rest of the code, which is working together with you. So I essentially read all the result using fread. And then I actually store the file in lresult. So lresult is containing in the memory about the whole JSON string in terms of C string. And then what I did is this part of the code is you're using a lot in homework assignment number 3. So this part of the code is essentially convert that JSON string, C string or C++ string, into a real JSON object using reader parse, reader pointing to the parse. So this code show up in our curriculum a lot because this is a piece of code. How do you actually convert the string to the JSON value? So the output is going to be my v message. So my v message is a JSON value object. So you can see that it's defined the first line. That's my v message, and I use this reader parse to parse the JSON string automatically into a JSON object. So after I'm done with this, if parse successful, I'm actually going to have a very nice JSON object, which is representing the file you have. And now what I'm going to do. So at this moment, I'm going to do this. So I'm actually giving you the code for the posts. So comment and reaction is the one you're working on. You didn't work on the post, but the post code is given to you. So you have that post code over there. So then I'm actually creating an empty. This is what I call an empty object. It's called post, my post. So I create my post is a post object, but without anything. I'm just, you can see that I'm using a very simple constructor, but I didn't put anything in there. The person star is null, the message star is null. So essentially is a null object. And then I actually skipped the B0. So just to let you know, at this one, I usually will do a B0. B0 is a way for us to initialize the memory So I think that was in one of the lecture I had, I kind of comment that out to just tell people if you don't have that, you might actually get into trouble. But in this machine, it should be okay. So I'm going to finish that. Okay, so now this is a real show. This is the code. You can see that just like a dump J. Now it's JDump. You can see that what I did is I said my post dot JDump. I'm actually calling this function JDump. And what's the input argument? Was that JSON object. So the input is a JSON object. It's actually dump everything. So before the call, this my post doesn't have anything. But now the post, the comment, the reaction, everything that we have for your homework assignment number 5 got put into that my post. So now my post, the real object. So see what I did. In order for me to check my JDump is correct. So if the result flag is true, means that it doesn't have any error message there. By the way, the JDump, if anything goes wrong, I'm going to throw out the JSON value. But here is what I did. I did a myPost.dumpJ. I'm actually, so let me tell you what we did so far. I read the file, which is a string representation of JSON. Sorry, a post, JSON post. And then I convert it to a real JSON object. And I use this object to JDump into my C++ post object. So now I'm going to my C++ object, I do a dump J. So I kind of go back again. So you see my code going like a bi-direction a lot. And when I get that dump J out and I put the content and I call toStyle string, and then it should actually give me the JSON output that's equivalent to the file that's actually provided to them. Okay, so that's the program. So the driver is actually pretty simple. It's just read the file, JDump, if successful, dump J, and print out the result to see if those results are basically the same, then you know your JDump has been correctly implemented, assuming your dump J is being correctly implemented as well, of course. Okay. All right, I'm going to show you just a very quick demo for, I will first show you the HW5 produce, then I'm going to show you the HW5 merge. There are 2 programs you need to worry about, but in fact, you just need to do one thing. You have to implement JDump correctly, then both of them will be taken care of, okay? Okay, so I actually compiled 3 programs, HW5 parse. You can take a look like this. I'm not going to spend time here. It's just even simpler than HW5 produce. So HW5 produces I just introduced, and then the 3rd program is called HW5 merge. So your homework assignment number 6 is implementation of JDump to be able to support both HW5 produce and HW5 merge. So do I have any JSON file here? I thought I have. Yes, I have. You see, I have a few JSON file here. This file is the input JSON. And then I have a merging different update because I want to merge different one. Let's actually take a look what it is, okay? Let me actually take a look at this one. This one looks like, let's look at the original one, base input JSON. So if you remember this is actually the message I keep showing up in all the lecture whenever I talk about this. This is about the comment about how I have interaction with student on the issue about Comcast. I mean, just let you know that this was a I should say this was from a real Facebook conversation when there was one day, because that was a pandemic, we all use Zoom internet to be able to go to class. And one time, Comcast, the network is essentially not working. So I basically say, all the students who use Comcast, it's no problem. You don't show up or whatever. You got extra extension, things like that. But then there's some conversation like that come up. So this is the conversation, looks like this. Okay, so now let's try to run the program. So HW5 produce take one parameter, which is base JSON. I'm actually taking this and I run it. It's actually generate this output. Let's actually generate this output differently. Let me actually put it, say this is O output 1. This is called IO redirection. You see that the bigger sign? It's actually redirect all the output. Let's take a look at what's in output 1. So output 1 is basically talk about the post itself. You have 2 comments. And this comment looks like we're doing the same comment for your homework assignment number 5, right? I forgot whether this is exactly the same one. You can see that there's one output with 2 reactions over there. Maybe make it a little bit smaller so you can see the whole thing. Okay, this is a little bit better. And essentially, you have this program, the rest of the comment and all the fields that are in there. Okay, this is a JSON representation of a particular post. It provides a social interaction, which is essentially have all the elements you would have when you use any kind of current social media system with all kinds of reaction and timestamp. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how do I do the comparison. So the trick I did the comparison, if I directly compare output with the base JSON, the difference is going to be a lot because JSON is arranging the order of the key value pair differently than the original one. After you do to style string, if you do this, there's a lot of difference there. But I actually do the following, which will play a trick. What I did is that instead of running HW5 produce on the base JSON, I'm actually play this against output 1. So the output 1 is my input. I mean, I know the information is equivalent, so I'm taking output 1 as the input, and then I'm going to generate output 2. Okay. The reason now the output 1 and output 2 is going to be the same. They're going to be the same because they both take the same JSON. They use exactly the same to style string function, which that string basically give exactly the same order of the key value pair. So by doing this process, I actually know my output 1 or output 2 in this case has been faithfully represent what's actually originally included in the base JSON. Okay, so if your JDOM is actually doing the right work, then you can use this way to actually check. So what I did to provide a test case, I actually provide output 1 because output 1 will be the same to style string to actually do that. But you know why I'm actually having this 2 different formats. One is this what we call compact format, which is with everything, but the other one is more like this, which is a structured way of showing the JSON, which is we call it to style string, which is really much easier for us to parse the information using our eyes. Okay. Any question about HW5 produce before I go to HW5 merge? Okay, so I'm actually going to the next one. I want to show you an example, and then we're going to see the JDOM. So let's look at HW. Yeah, I still call it HW5 merge. Okay, this is HW5 merge.cpp, and it's still main function, but the difference you can see, by the way, this code will be given to you. I have 2 files. One is called JF1, one is called JF2. So what the output of this program is actually going to merge these 2 JSON into one single post. You can think about I'll show you a real, let me show you the real case. So the base input is still the same one, but the output, let's say update 1, input, revise. You can see that I'm actually adding the things. I'm actually adding some. What did I add? I actually show you on the lecture, but I'm going to use my little tool to help me to actually make it nicer. You know, one of the way to use HW5 produce, I just show you, is actually for me to get a nice output, looks like this. Because I used to style string, let me actually use this UUU1. So let me show you what UUU1 looks like. Essentially, is adding a new comment to the post. It has the comment, it has the count, has the data, has whatever data it is, and then it has a reaction. Okay, it has a reaction, everything like here, it has a tag. And then at the end, this is very important, I have a post ID. I have a post ID, I put it here, and to represent which post this update is going to append it into. So that's basically the update we provide. And then the merge is going to merge this one with the JSON I showed you earlier, the post I showed you earlier. So we actually include the newer reaction, the newer comment to the same post. Okay, so this is what the merge is going to do. So let's take a look at, that's why you have two files. One is called JF1, that is called JF2. And you can see that the first part is I'm handling the first JSON file. And the first JSON file, if you look at it, the code is identical to homework 5 produced I just showed you. You look at the code, everything is identical. It's using fread, whatever, and using this read parse on this. And until this point, I actually do this. This is the same, right? Result flag, my post JDOM, my v message. If you remember a few minutes ago when I showed you HW5 produce, that's exactly the same line of code. I'm actually JDOM into the C++, empty C++ object, okay? Okay, after I've done this, you can see that now I'm trying to do the second one. So a comment say the first JSON is done. So I'm actually going to take care of the second file. And again, the file is exactly, the code is exactly the same, except is JF2 instead of JF1. Everything is the same. Everything is also doing the reader parse here. And I'm actually even getting the same JSON value object, my v message. So now let's see what I did with this. Okay, so now from here, I do a little bit twist in order for us to get things correctly. Because one of the idea of the merge is that I want to merge only if these two JSON, they belong to the same post. Because after all, this is merging about two social media posts. So essentially what I need to do is before I did the post, this segment of code is all about checking the ID, whether the post ID in the second file is the same as the post ID for the my post object, which is representing the first post file. So you can actually check. I actually check 3 portions. I check. Okay, by the way, let me actually show you this code a little bit more. Show you the original JSON. If you look at the ID is here. The ID has 2 parts. One is called profile ID, one is called post ID. So I have to make sure that this two. So in the post, this is really the convention of Facebook posts. So Facebook post is always profile or page ID and post ID. If you have a comment and there was a comment ID, is 3 ID connected with underscore. If you have a 3 ID that's 2 underscore, post ID because there is only, it doesn't have a comment ID, so that's why only have a 1 underscore. Okay, so I have to check whether this is belong to the same profile and the same post ID. If these 2 match, I know I'm going to do the merge. If this doesn't match, no, I'm not going to do merge because I cannot merge two different posts into one single place. That's the semantic we need to take care. Okay, so let's go back to the code. So this part essentially is actually try to parsing the code, but the parse part, I have to tell you, this is the part of the code you might or might not familiar with. So let me actually look at this line of code. I want you to actually all take a look at this line. Can somebody tell me what this line is doing? This line, I just marked. This is probably, I'm not sure you learned this from ecs36b or whatever learn C because it's not so common in the format string, and yet personally I found it very useful. So what is that line is doing? Yes.
Is it separating the number?
Yes, it's a separating out. So the important thing, you probably familiar with %d, \n, \t, or %s, or %f, %lf. Those represent, or %t. Those represent what we call format string. That's actually printf, fprintf, sprintf. Those three functions, or scanf. They all have this three function. But this is very useful. It's almost like a regular expression, but it's really nice for string. I just want to tell you a little bit to understand the code. You see that here I have a %, but after a %, I actually put a bracket. And within bracket, I hope you can see that I actually have a not. This one in C is called not. It's not, it's negative. And then after negative is underscore. So this is basically say, by the way, if you remove that not, means that that particular one is going to match any character that's actually underscore. So what I did is, I should move my mouse a little bit. You can probably see this code nicer. Essentially what I'm saying this, I say not underscore. So that % bracket is essentially just a %s, except it will match every single character until it hits a underscore. So that's that part is due. So to parse a ID looks like this. See, I try to deal with this ID. This ID, I want to get the first part out, which is the profile ID. The second part is the post ID, and it's separate by underscore. So what I did here is I used format string, but a negative match for underscore. So it will capture every single character before they hit the first underscore. So that's what the code is doing, just to let you know. Oh, sorry. So essentially is have a two-step. One string is this. This is the first string is going to match until it hit the underscore. Then I put the underscore, of course. And then the second string is after the underscore. And then you can see that the first one I put in profile ID buffer. The second one I call the post ID buffer. I put it into this two buffer over here. So that's just that you know that this is kind of the C programming sometimes we use to kind of separate a string into different parts. If we know the semantic like this case. Okay, so I actually split that. So now I have a profile ID and post ID. I actually converted the regular string so I can do a comparison. I compare that and then I do my post.profile ID if this is equal to this, and my post ID if this is equal to the one we just extract. Okay, so with this, I compare whatever ID I have in my post object with those two profile ID and post ID I just extract using that scanf function. So essentially, I need to have both of them the same. Either one of them not the same, I will just print out post ID mismatch and the end of the story. Okay. That's what we have. Okay, now we're going to do the else. The else case looks like this. If it's not if it's okay, you can see I'm doing my post JDump again. I'm actually dumping the second post file into that again. And then I'm actually just printing it out using exactly the same code. So that's essentially what we're doing in terms of the homework assignment number 6 merge. The program will be given to you. Look at that. So the only thing you need to worry about is the JDump. It's a JDump function, which I'm going to cover right now. Any question before I move to the next step? Okay, I'm going to go for the JDump. So in the reference implementation, I haven't actually sent out the reference implementation, but the reference implementation will have some JDump already implemented, because I want you to just get a taste about some of the elements. So I'm going to give you some. For example, the post.cpp, which is the most complicated one, I'm actually giving you both the dumpj and JDump. So you can actually take a look at that. So this is in post.cpp. So let's actually first take a look at the post.cpp, this program. Okay. Oh, I should just tell you this. This is interesting. You guys are relatively lucky for this homework, so we already took care of a lot of problems. You see that this is a default constructor. Post is a default constructor. So usually the post default constructor, many of the platform, most of the platform, we assume all the attributes should be initialized to null. Means that everything should be 0. So that's why the first release I have, I actually don't have anything below that red line. Everything down here is just all I never initialize, which actually I realize if you're using WSL, those is not going to give you null. It's going to give you a lot of random address, and which causing a lot of segmentation fault because of that. So we realize that we have to basically explicitly put the statement to nullify every single pointer that we have in the constructor. Okay, so I'm going to, this code will be given to you so you can see how we did dumpj. This is a post dumpj, and it has different part, has an action part. It's all the same format. Let's actually go to reaction, because the reaction part of the dumpj, to be honest with you, is almost the same as a reaction to the part you have. The difference is that this is the reaction to the post. You're dealing with a reaction to the comments. Okay, so let's look at the reaction part to the post here. Can I move up a little bit? Okay, let me go through this dumpj very quick, then I will go to JDump. So the reaction part is basically check whether reaction is null, whether the size is actually greater than 0. If it is the case, then essentially in the dumpj, I actually go through the reaction as an array. It's a vector, so I can go through that. What you see is I'm using this reaction I index, which is an array, and then I'm calling each of the reaction to get the dumpj. So after I did the dumpj, you see that after I done from this part to this part, I actually have an array of JSON, which is JSON reaction, which is here. And then what I did, this part, some of you have a question. What I did is that I actually need to insert into another JSON object called JSON reactions array instead of JSON reactions. In the array, I have a 2 key value pair. The first key value pair is data, and the value is going to be that array. And the second one is the count, is a number of the size of the array. And by doing this, I finally, after I done this, I actually push the reaction into the result pointer of the post. Okay, so that's basically the kind of code you will use the subject. So this code will be given to you. So you actually can reference not only for homework 6, you can actually reference that for homework 5 as well. Okay, so that having said that, I'm going to show you the JDOM. So this is a JDOM for post. Again, it's going to give you a lot of hints about how you're going to do JDOM for reaction and for comment as well. So again, I'm actually process one section by one section. I actually check a few things. You can notice that we always, is a good habit for you to actually check whether that pointer is null, it's actually doing okay. Because sometimes people just passing random thing, which is causing the system to crash. It's always good to actually check. You see, I checked 3 things. Is this null? And also, if it's not, pointer is not null, whether that JSON object is null. And then I check if this is an object, if it's not null. And also I make sure that this is not an array. If it's an array, I will throw it out. So I'm going to process one element by element. The first one is ID. I'm going to skip that because I already explained. Just show you I'm using the scanf again. scanf, using this format string, same code everywhere. Okay, this is ID part. This is the action part, but I'm going to the reaction part because this is mostly relevant. This is a comment part, it's a little bit complicated, but I'm going to the reaction part to show you what is the JDOM looks like. Okay, this part is a reaction part. Okay, this, I think it will be good if I can finish this by the end of this lecture, and maybe I will tell you homework 6, separate opportunity. Maybe Wednesday I will talk about the homework 7, the code that looks like this. So take a look at this, how I did this part. So first I check is the reaction is null. I'm checking the JSON part because I'm actually taking the JSON, put into my C++ object. I check if it's a null, if it's an object, and then if it's the data is null, because remember in our convention, an array is an object. The first element is the data. The second element is a count. That's why I'm actually checking whether this data is null and also this data is an array. So I check this 4 thing. If all 4 of them looks good, then I'm actually checking whether this reaction is a null or not. Okay, here we have to be careful. Here we have 2 cases. One case is I'm handling like a HW6 produce, which is I'm taking a JSON, I don't have anything, I just put it in. It's a new post or new whatever. But the second scenario is merge. Merge means that I actually have it already. I'm actually going to only add the new element into that. So I'm actually check whether this is null. If it's null, I just create a new array. Because if I ever done this, which means that it's a new post object, I have to create this new vector to storing all this reaction. Okay, so this part, and then after I create this, I'm going to now insert one reaction after the action into that. So this part I have to explain a little bit slower because this part is more complicated. Any question at this moment? Yeah, I mean, computer science is kind of boring. Okay, we always look at the code. We don't have a nice media. All right, sorry about that. Hopefully, you guys will provide innovation about better represent the program, such that programmers' life will be not as pathetic. Okay, all right. So now I'm actually trying to extract each of the comments. You see that the way I did it is this part. I look at the input JSON pointer. So what is the input JSON pointer? Is the input I actually obtained from the master JDOM program from HW6 merge. So I actually extract the reaction and I extract the data. I actually look at both and then I start to go over this one after the other. So what I did is I actually create a JSON object called LJV because I don't want to carry this reactions data all the time. So look at this line. I'm actually putting LJV is equal to this input JSON PTR, and then I put reaction, data, and I, the index I. So essentially this in the JSON program, it actually allowed me to access to the I's JSON object in that array represented by reactions and data. Okay, so now LJV, what is LJV? LJV represents one single reaction in the JSON format. Okay, so now we're dealing with that. So now I know I might have to create a new reaction. So I first create this reaction. So now I have a two pointer is LJV and L reaction pointer. So essentially what I want to do is I want to put this LJV into that L reaction pointer. So basically what is JDump? JDump is trying to put this guy into this guy. Okay, so you see that's exactly what I did. I JDump this into there. Okay, so now I have a reaction pointer that's actually contained all the information in the original JSON. Okay, so now this is the next step is really crucial to consider whether this is the merge or this is the produce. So I need to check whether this reaction already exists. So essentially this part of the array is actually checking for every single reaction you have on this object. So what is this? This is the post. By the way, what is a post? Let me actually show you this. I'm going to post.h. Okay, good. I cannot believe that. It really, hold on. Okay, this is post. Under post, I have a one element called vector reactions, this one. So this is exactly the same, but at the post level instead of at the comment level. So I have that reactions, which is a array of a reaction I try to maintain. So just let you know this is there. And what we have done so far is this three line. I create an LJV, which is extract that JSON object, and I create a reaction. But this reaction is actually has nothing to do with this reactions yet. It's a separate object I just create. But then I actually JDump to put that particular JSON reaction into the C++ reaction I just create. So this way is essentially create a reaction object that hasn't been inserted into the post reactions array, which is this. So what I did here is now I need to check whether this particular reaction is already exists. So what I did here, this part of the code is essentially go through every single reaction. We actually go through every single reaction. And what I did, look at this, is I actually iterate using begin and end. By the way, for those of you who want to do vector, STD vector, how do you actually go through a loop? Here's an example. You use this reaction begin and end to represent the beginning and the end of every single element in the vector, in the array. And what I did is that for each of the elements, you can think about this as just each of the elements. I look at the author. If the author is equal to reaction pointer author, this is like operator equal, essentially. To compare those two, I didn't use operator equal, just let you know. But this two, wait a minute, I forgot. I actually, yes, is operator equal, is actually person dot object, because those author is a person object. The other is also. So this one is existing in that reaction. This one is over here, and this is operator equal. If they are the same, then I actually raise a flag saying that, hey, this reaction is already happened. So that's why the flag reaction is equal to 1. So here, over here, you can see that I check whether the flag RT is equal to 0. If it's a 0, then I push the one I just create into the reaction array. If not, I just delete the memory. Okay, so that's the way you can handle the array of reaction from the JSON and recursively one-to-one and dump it to the object. Any question? Okay, I think I'm running out of time. Is that right? I have one more minute. Yes, please. December 5th. December 5th. Yeah. The end of the quarter. Yes. And the thing is that I plan to do this. You actually show me a demo of your homework 6 and homework 7 during your presentation of the final project. And I think that's the easiest way, and nobody needs to worry about. I don't have to bother TA to do that. I will grade it yourself. So I actually, when you present your idea, and then I'm going to show you, I want to sit down, you demonstrate for me what it is. So when I say December 5th, I'm really talking about December 7th. You can have like extra, when you show me that result over there. Yes, you can do that. But I want to tell you that I only want to keep a record that you do submit your work. And you can submit that. I will say, even though I said December 5th, but you submit, say, a few days later, that's fine. But definitely December 7th, I want to see that. I'm going to give a grade by you. Okay. Yes. Next Monday. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We'll get you there. All right. Thank you.